Hey guys, I wanted to show off my shirt. I know it's backwards, defund the media. I think we can all agree on that. My hair's a little wrecked, just took it out of a ponytail, call it good. We're gonna do another react to the reactions video because I love stirring things up on social media because it's just so easy. It's just so easy. You comment on, especially a news organization that tends to be more left-leaning, you make any comment that has any kind of reason or rationale in it, and it's like moths to a flame. They just come pouring in to spread that healing and unity we've heard so much about. So the article that I commented on today, at least that drew a lot of really fun comments, was on the NBC DFW Facebook page again, and it's an article talking about how Beto O'Rourke is trying to run for governor again, and we all know how terrible that would be for the state of Texas. He's trying to run against Greg Abbott, and so my comment on this article was, the last thing America needs is another state run into the ground by astronomical tax hikes, no citizenship enforcement, drug crises, critical race theory, extreme costs of living, vilifying law enforcement, allowing total unrest, and pandering to the communist left. Nope, nope, nope. And what a lot of these people that wanted to jump in and share their heartwarming opinions with me kept saying was, you know, how terrible Governor Abbott is and how he needed to go, and, you know, and criticizing me for being in favor of Governor Abbott. And never once did I say Governor Abbott is the bee's knees. He's the best thing ever. Like, you know, I like him more than a lot of other governors. We just moved here from the state of Colorado, so let me tell you, he is leaps and bounds better than Governor Jared Polis. Like, I mean, Polis doesn't set the bar very high, so, you know, it's not difficult to be better than him. But yeah, so I guess better is relative. I guess it comes from your personal experiences. But yeah, the last thing the state of Texas needs is Beto O'Rourke. So some of the wonderful replies, I mean, and let me tell you, they're just unifying and tolerating everywhere. It was just wonderful. It felt like a church service. It was so much fun. So let's see. Oh, I got a lot of replies here, just a lot. Well, the first reply that I got was from Ben. Ben said, "You are mentally ill. Sweek help." S-W-E-K. And I, of course, said, "Convincing argument. I think I want to be a Democrat now." Right after I sweek help. And then he corrected his spelling mistake. But you know, when you're coming back with a comment, if you want to convince somebody of your argument, I mean, jumping in and saying, "Hey, you're mentally ill," not super convincing, not super, you know, it's not going to push me to your side of the argument or make me want to understand where you're coming from at all. I mean, shockingly, I know this is a shock, but if you want me to listen to what you have to say, maybe don't start off with, "Hey, you're mentally ill." How am I mentally ill? Like, what about what I said do you disagree with? Do you not like? You know, let's have a conversation, but apparently Ben struggles with that. So maybe Ben just needs a hug. So right after that, let's see. Someone else said it was okay for me to seek help, which, you know, that's fine. So then there's Dwayne Culpepper. Dwayne, I mean, really, I honestly think that Dwayne and I could have a conversation, but people automatically assume that if you're on the left and the right, like, there's no middle ground, there's no conversation to be had. So Dwayne, he said, "I'm sure all the people who could have bought into Medicare and had insurance, the best insurance, I might add, and had their loved ones saved, would agree that Abbott is just great for Texas. Remember, he said Texas didn't need any of that stuff for the working people." And let me tell you, sometimes the grammar here is a little bit difficult to interpret. So that's why I'm kind of reading slower, because I'm trying to make sure I get the right inflections and that I'm correctly translating kind of what Dwayne's trying to say here. So first, his argument is that he's had, from what I understand, the best insurance he's had is Medicare, and that Governor Abbott is against Medicare. Let's see, and of course you can also see how he's making the power companies jump into immediate action to upgrade their systems so we won't freeze and have multiple billions of bucks in damages when, not if, the next Arctic blast hits. But wait, those big buck people are his buddies, so no hurry. Okay, so apparently Dwayne doesn't like the way that Governor Abbott handled the snowmageddon that happened here in Texas a couple months ago. And I understand, like, that I was living in Colorado at the time. We just moved to Texas a couple months ago. So it was about a month after all that happened. And I get, like, we were watching it from, hundreds of miles away, and it looked horrifying. I mean, when you're in a state that's not prepared for that kind of thing, sorry, and, you have something like that hit, that's terrifying. Like, I can't even imagine. We've had a couple of severe snowstorms in Colorado that left us without power for a couple of days, that really made it difficult to get around, and it was really cold. But then again, in Colorado, we were prepared for it. So yeah, we want to see some changes made so that if and when that happens again, people aren't freezing to death. But we can agree on those changes not being a completely centralized planning, federalized, government-owned system, like what the things that Beto O'Rourke wants to do, to make everything in control of the federal government, everything within central planning. We can agree on solutions that don't involve that, at all. Not to mention the windmills that all froze and didn't work. So, people like Beto O'Rourke and AOC think that more frozen windmills would have been the situation, or would have been the solution, sorry. So I don't understand how that's a solution. So we can agree that there are better solutions to how Governor Abbott handled it without agreeing that more frozen windmills would have been the answer. So of course I had to respond to Dwayne, because if the mainstream media is your sole source of information, you are not getting the full picture of what is really happening in Democrat-run states. And this does not come from a biased opinion. This is not fear-mongering. This is not a narrative. When you actually look what is happening to these cities, you do not want these people in charge. I don't care if you have voted Republican in the past or voted Democrat in the past. We can agree that we do not want our cities turning into cesspools of drug problems and disease and people that can't afford to live. We don't want any of that to happen. So I said, Dwayne, what part of Democrat-run states do you like best now? The massive increase in homicides? Fact. Law enforcement leaving their jobs in droves? Fact. Legislation being passed by Democrats that is literally causing companies to avoid bringing jobs to their state? Fact. Government regulation that is making it impossible for landlords to even offer rentals? Fact. The mass surge in Asian and Jewish hate crimes? Fact. The astronomical costs of living? Fact. The schools run by activists instead of educators, overrun streets with homelessness caused by drug abuse, the smell of urine in every stairwell, needles and feces in our public parks. What part of that do you want to happen here in Texas? What part of that should we emulate first or try to copy first? This is literally what is happening. And somebody accused me of fear-mongering. I'm sorry, but facts are not fear-mongering. And if those things scare you, then you should be fighting tooth and nail to keep them from happening in the area that you live in. And if you don't believe they're happening, then maybe you need to look at something other than the mainstream media and actually have a look at the facts, because the mainstream media is not interested in sharing with you what is happening in Democrat-run cities and states, okay? Let me see. Someone said, Magdalene Brooks said, we do not need the continuation of poor leadership in the state, a governor who supports fascism. Please, you're gonna have to explain to me how Governor Abbott supports fascism. Like, we all know the left likes to throw these little terms out there. They're actually not little, they're pretty severe, but they throw these terms out there without actually explaining this is how Governor Abbott supports fascism. Passing laws to make it harder for Black and brown people to vote. Are you kidding me? How is it more difficult to vote here? Having an ID? So you're admitting that you don't know how to use an ID to vote? I don't think that about you. I think that you are perfectly capable of using an ID to vote. So why are you giving into this narrative that the left is constantly pushing, saying that Black and brown people are too stupid to have an ID to vote? I don't think that. So no, that doesn't make it more difficult. And the only reason that you would believe that is because that is what the mainstream media is telling you. Stop! Abbott is a big fat no for me. Well, guess what, Magdalene? Like, I don't necessarily love Governor Abbott either. We agree. We need better leadership. Guess what? Beto O'Rourke is not that. Ella St. Clair said, oh yeah, Texas is so great if you listen to Abbott. I'm considering moving out of my home state because Texas property taxes are so high, 3 times higher than most states. Open your eyes. Okay, so a lot of people responded. I gotta find where I responded. Ah, there we go. So which state's taxes do you like better, Ella? Colorado, where landlords are selling their rental properties, leading to less housing availability. New York, where those who can afford to leave are leaving in masses, leaving the astronomical taxes to be paid by the middle and lower classes. California, where the cost of living is so high that people opt to live in tents in rat-infested sites instead of even trying to find a place to live. I don't love Abbott by any stretch, so let's get better leadership, but Beto is not the answer. Beto will tax us to high heaven. Nobody will be able to afford to live. We are going to look like California. We're going to look like New York. People do not understand that when you raise the taxes, the people that pay the highest percentage of taxes, which are the wealthy, they pay, you know, between 30 to 40% of taxes. They pay the highest amount of taxes, despite what the mainstream media tells you. They pay more taxes than anybody else. The people that are wealthy, they can afford to leave, Ella. They do leave. They put their money in places where they won't be taxed at astronomical amounts. They take their businesses out of state. They move out of state. And sometimes out of the country. They will move, well, probably not out of the country, but they will move to places that benefit their hard work and how they're earning their money. And then the people that are left, people who can't afford to just pick up and leave, they are left to pay those taxes, to cover the cost, to cover where, you know, the wealthiest used to contribute to all of these things that, you know, are happening in their state or that their state needs. And the middle and lower classes are the ones that are left footing the bill. So, you know, if someone is wealthy and they're being taxed astronomically, they move their money, they move their home, they move their family away from that. Because they can afford to do that. They are not obligated in any way to stay somewhere that is not beneficial. So yeah, so you want that to happen in Texas? Let's put Beto in charge. Beto. Let's see, Brandy said, we already are in extreme cost of living, so I don't know what your rent is, but people can't afford to live life now due to that. And stop saying communist like you know what it means. I know exactly what communist means. And just because you might not be somebody that specifically advocates for communism does not mean that you are not being used as a tool to push communism. You are being used to push systems and to push people into power that want to impose communism on America. So, Brandy, you may not call yourself a communist, but believing that people like Beto O'Rourke want to have your best interests in mind and putting people like that in power, you are being used to push communism into our country because you refuse to look at what the facts are. You want to talk about extreme cost of living? We just moved here from Colorado. One of the main reasons we moved, aside from, you know, the leftist, we have a Democrat-controlled governor, Senate, and House. All 3 branches of government in Colorado are being controlled by the same party, and the state has absolutely gone downhill. I moved there in 2008. It is not the same state that it used to be. We decided it was not a good place to raise our family. So you want to talk about extreme cost of living? You cannot find a decent home in Colorado. A decent home, not even anything like luxurious, just like bare bones, decent home that's not, you know, total crap. You can't find it for less than about $450,000 to $500,000. And I'm not even kidding about that. So we saw the cost of living here in Texas. We saw, yes, they have higher property taxes, but honestly, like, it doesn't even compare to what you're going to pay in a mortgage in the state of Colorado. Even when you buy a home here at $250,000 and pay higher property taxes, you're still not going to be paying as much to live here. So yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking about with the astronomical cost of living. I have a friend who owns an apartment complex in a small apartment building, and she has decided to sell it because the Democrats recently passed legislation that favors people paying their rent later, that ties the hands of landlords to be able to impose late fees or fines, or you know, to really hold anybody accountable for paying their rent. And they're really making it impossible to provide any kind of affordable housing whatsoever. So she's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of this legislature that is literally destroying the ability for people to even live here. So yeah, that's why we moved here. So if you don't understand what the extreme costs of living are, then you haven't looked outside of your state. You haven't looked at the fact that it is impossible to live in places like California or Oregon or New York or Colorado. All of these states are driving people out because they can't afford to live there anymore. And we don't want that to happen here. We want people to actually be able to pay their mortgage and actually be able to afford to house their family and put a roof over their head. So, you know, again, if you don't like Governor Abbott, fine, let's look into some other candidates. But we do not want Beto in charge, because what is happening in all of these other states is what is going to happen here. Gabriel said, sounds like you are well indoctrinated by the radical right. Right. Gabriel, you need a hug. And then Desiree, this is the last one I'll respond to, because I could go on and on. There's like 150 comments on this now. It says, how dare people learn about race, referring to critical race theory. And I said, critical race theory is not learning about race. And if you think that's what it is, you clearly haven't looked into it at all. I have no problem with a diverse curriculum. I have no problem learning about more of our historical figures, people of all colors, ethnicities, and cultures, everybody that has contributed to America being what it is now, this land of opportunity and freedom, the good and the bad. I want to learn about everybody. I have no problem with that whatsoever. There are some really cool historical figures that have done amazing things in the past, and I don't care what their culture and ethnicity is. I would love to learn about them. That is not, and I know the media likes to paint Republicans as these people that hate diversity and ethnicities, different ethnicities and cultures and backgrounds and skin colors. It's not true. 100% not true at all. I have never met a Republican that wants to discriminate against anybody in any way. Like, I've never met them. I don't know who they are. So whatever the media is talking about, I don't know, because that's not how it is. I am telling you right now, that's not what we think. That's not what we believe. You want to put more diverse curriculum in school? Let's come together and discuss what kind of, what historical figures, how to expand the curriculum, how to benefit our kids, and teaching them more about American history. But putting critical race theory in there, that is not how to do it. Somebody asked me to explain critical race theory to them, and basically, I don't know where the comment is, but I got called Karen a few hundred times, which is just, did you know, by the way, that Karen was there was a study done, and this is ridiculous that we're going to spend money on this, but Karen was the number one women's name of women that voted for Democrats this year, in the last election, I mean. So it's really funny when they keep calling me Karen. I'm like, actually, most Karens vote left. When they say, what is critical race theory? It's a Marxist-based curriculum that obliterates individualism and anything that has to do with you believing in yourself, believing in your individual talents and abilities, that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve based on the choices that you make. It's completely obliterating that. It's teaching Black people that they can't accomplish anything unless everybody else in society is torn down, and it's teaching white people that they have to hate themselves for anybody else in society to succeed, and that everybody is viewed as a collective, that all Black people think this way and all white people think this way. It has no individualism whatsoever, and it is a direct attack on just the American dream, the American way of life, freedom, individualism, you know, the opportunity to succeed, to me, that is not teaching a diverse curriculum. It is not teaching people about our, you know, different historical figures in our past. It has nothing to do with that. So if you honestly believe that it's that simple, you need to look in it further. And I do not believe that any of our children need to be taught any of these things. They are not evil based on their skin color, and no child should ever be taught that they can't succeed unless the people around them are torn down. So I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for your children. I don't care what the skin color is. No child should be taught that. So I'm going to leave it at that. You can go on the NBC DFW Facebook page and see the article about Beto O'Rourke running for governor again and kind of see how this conversation went. But, you know, I sometimes, like I said, I just have to respond out loud. I was at the gym when I was reading through these, and that's a really great place to read through left-wing comments, because you start to get like really heated and you just need to let that aggression out. So, you know, so now I can just kind of read it and laugh a little bit and enjoy it with you guys. Anyway, I have some other things that I want to get on, you know, get out there and just kind of talk about. I know that, you know, I feel like we just need more voices. We need more people speaking up and just kind of pointing out where, you know, people are misinformed. People are not looking at the entire picture. People are making assumptions just because I vote a certain way, that this is the way that I think. You know, and we really just need to stop sitting back and being the silent majority and just kind of start speaking out a little bit more. So that's what I'm doing. Have a good day. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and let me know what else you want me to talk about. Have a good one. Bye.